Before I begin, just a shameless plug for our show. Christmas is coming up, December 6th, 7th, and 8th. Two of my castmates are over there. We still need a love seat, so if you have a love seat that we could borrow, if you could take a picture or see me or talk to me. Also, we need some help in the front of handing out programs and taking donations and things like that. We need 4 people for each show. So if you'd like to get in free, come see me, because you can get in free if you'd like to help out. So much for the commercial. So today we are continuing with our stewardship month. And soon, next week, we'll be taking up our pledge cards. And so we're continuing to talk about a difficult subject, to talk about giving. But I'm not going to make any apologies for talking about giving, because you can't be a spiritual person without giving.
That's right.
You just can't. The two go hand in hand. And giving lies at the heart of all spiritual traditions. That's just the way it is. Now, the Christian tradition hasn't always done a very good job in talking about giving, because very often it is connected to something that the church, whatever that means, needs or wants, not necessarily what it means to give of yourself as a person. Giving is a spiritual discipline, just like going to the gym is a discipline, having a diet is a discipline, giving is a discipline. And the better you get at it, you get better at it by regularity, by just practicing it on a regular basis. And as I was hearing again that reading from Romans, something struck me. Paul starts out urging us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. Now that phrase and that verse has often been used in conjunction with what comes in the beginning of Romans as a clobber passage, that it's about sex. But no, we are to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. That's our spiritual worship. That means what we do. Our bodies is what we do. It's how we act. It's who we are. And so giving is a part of our worship. It's a part of being a spiritual person. And so it's important to look at. And this passage from Mark is a beautiful passage about a woman who gives everything. Now, there was a story that I heard a long time ago about a traveler who was making a journey through a strange land, but he didn't plan very well. And soon he ran out of food and he became hungry, but he kept on walking with the hopes that he would come across a village or a shack or something where he might be able to get something to eat. And then he saw a figure coming down the road towards him. And it was a monk who was on the way to see his master. The traveler greeted him and said, "Kind sir, I've run out of food and I'm very hungry. Do you have anything that you can share?" And the monk said, "Certainly, my friend. I'm happy to share with you what little I have. So let's find a place to sit." And so they found a spot under a tree. And the monk took out his traveling bag and he spilled the contents on the ground, and there were a couple of potatoes and a carrot, a heel of bread, some dried meat, not very much. And then the traveler's eyes fell on the most wondrous sight. Mixed in with these meager provisions were some of the most magnificent jewels he had ever seen. There were some rubies, there were some emeralds, a few pearls, and then this bright, big, sparkling rock that the traveler was sure must be a diamond. But the monk paid no attention to these jewels. He just began dividing up the food between them. And they ate in silence, and it wasn't any feast, but the traveler felt much better. And he began to refill the bag with the jewels, and the traveler said, "Those rocks are very beautiful." "Yes, they are," replied the monk. "Do you like them?" "Oh, yes, I do," said the traveler. And then when the monk finished putting it in the bag, he gave the bag to the traveler and said, "Then please take them and enjoy." The traveler was stunned, as you can imagine. He couldn't believe his good fortune, and so he took the bag quickly and started off. "Oh, I will enjoy them indeed," he said. "Thank you for sharing your food and your kind gift." And the monk began to go in his direction. The traveler was shocked, and he just stood there for a moment. And he couldn't believe about his good fortune, about how his life had suddenly changed when he's going to be rich now. But then something occurred to him, a very surprising and profound thought. And he turned around and he went back to the monk and he caught up with him and he said, "Good sir, you've been so kind to me, sharing your food and giving me the gift of your beautiful stones. But there's one more thing that I would ask of you. Please give to me that which enabled you to share so freely." Wouldn't it be great to have somebody do that? Just drop a bag of money in your lap? It'd be like winning the lottery. The IRS wouldn't have to get involved. And that monk had something in his head that enabled him to just give everything away. And the same thing with our widow in the Gospel of Mark. Jesus is sitting up in front of the temple and he's watching this big scene. And a few weeks ago we heard a passage earlier in this chapter of people that make a big noise when they give their money. The treasury was probably like a trumpet, a metal funnel that went into a box. And so the rich people would go along and throw in their coins. And Jesus noticed something out of all of that. This little lady just kind of comes up and blink, drops in a couple of pennies, and off she goes. And out of all the things that's going on in that scene, what does Jesus notice? He notices that one thing, that woman. And he brings his disciples over and he says, "Look, she gave everything she had." And so he calls out this type of giving like the mother. What is it that enabled her to do that? Now, I'm not going to say that we should give our entire life savings to the church or to anything, because that's not what this is about. This is about having a mindset that enables us to give freely and generously. A few verses up, Jesus gives the greatest commandment. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, and you shall love the Lord with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your mind and with all of your strength. And the second is this, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself." So Mark is emphasizing having a single-hearted devotion to what God wants for humanity. In other words, individual holiness comes down to a commitment to serving others rather than seeking our own exaltation. And as we serve and as we give, it's very easy to get caught up in the comparison game and say, "Oh, I'm not rich like you," or "I'm not smart like you," or I don't have anything to give." That's not true. Also, as Romans says, Paul says in Romans, everybody has a gift. And all of those gifts come together to create the body of Christ. So what is it that gets in our way? What keeps us from being like the monk or like the widow, of being able to give so freely? And the amount doesn't matter. One of the things, I think, underneath it all is fear. And we're afraid of a lot of things. Number one, we're afraid of deprivation. That if I give, my needs aren't going to be met. That I'm not going to have enough for myself or for my family. And that's saying that God does not provide. That God does. And as we give of ourselves, the thing we discover is that God keeps giving back in ways that we never expected, in ways that we never dreamed of, like a traveler, like a monk coming along and plopping down a pile of money into that. And so when we are afraid, thinking that we don't have enough, thinking that there's not enough to go around, we are limiting God and we're limiting ourselves. And so when we have this opportunity to give something, we need to look at what is holding me back. Is it fear? Another fear that I think really comes into play is defectiveness. That there's something wrong with me, with us. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of having the abundance that God has promised. There are other people better than me, and there's something wrong, and so I don't deserve it, so I'm going to hold on to what little bit I have because it's all I have. It's not true. As Emerald read so beautifully, you're a note in the symphony that God is playing. No matter who you are, no matter what has happened to your body, no matter what circumstance you're in, you are not broken. You are a whole, lovable, beautiful being. And you have something to offer and something to give. And finally, it's failure. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm insecure. I'm inadequate. And because we have this fear of I'm not good enough again, just like the other two, we hold on, we hold back, we keep ourselves blocked in. I've struggled with issues of self-esteem and self-worth most of my life. And I still am working on it. There are times I feel I'm not good enough. And we have to really work at rewriting that wiring in our brains. We have to become aware of when these things are coming up so that we can change our minds and do something different. So as we approach stewardship, it is about giving. It is about how can I offer myself to God. It doesn't have to mean going on a mission trip someplace. It doesn't have to mean giving up everything. It means being open to those opportunities when you have something that another person needs. When your joy meets the world's need. That's the opportunity to give. And when we are a spiritual kind of people and we have this mindset of being open and generous, then love flows into the world. That's how people know our love, by what they see and by what we offer to them. Would you pray with me? Holy and loving God, we just thank you that in your economy there is no distinction in what we give. You take all gifts and you multiply them and you use them for your purposes. And your purpose is to love this world back into wholeness. And so help us, God, as we discover our fears that hold us back from giving in whatever opportunities we have. Help us to become aware, to become mindful, and to erase those fears, and to allow your love to flow in us and through us. In your many names we pray.